Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I am Shelby of Shelby and the Book Club, and this is the first book review of the year. I can't believe this book made me cry. I cannot believe this book made me cry. And if you've seen the title, you know that I am talking about The Stationery Shop by Marjan Kamali. This book was absolutely amazing, and if you would like to hear about it, stay tuned. Where do I begin with my love for The Stationery Shop? So I purchased this book totally off of impulse. I watch a booktuber here on the YouTube that goes by the name of This Story Ain't Over. That's the name of her channel. I believe her name is Janine. I don't think I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm sorry. I was looking into the abyss because I think y'all heard Gunner bark. But I just, the way that she was talking about the book, I was like, okay, I have to have this, right? I have to have this book. And it takes place in Tehran, Iran, which I read Aria, and I read A Woman Is No Man, and they all are basically like culturally the same in a certain aspect, and I really enjoyed those books. So I was like, well, maybe I'll pick this one up and I'll enjoy it too. The only thing that I was a little apprehensive about was that it has a little bit of a romance aspect to it, and you guys know I absolutely loved 7 Days in June, but I'm not a romance kind of girl because it can be really super sappy and unrealistic in a way. So I was just like, I don't know. So the book starts off in the year 1953, I believe. Let's see. Hold on a second. You should have came prepared, Shelby. You should have came prepared. No, okay. The book starts off in 2013, right? So Roya is 77 years old at this point, and in the very first chapter, she goes to a nursing home in her area to visit a man by the name of Bamin, who is her long-lost love from when she was 17 and still living in Iran, to reconcile. And just based off of the first chapter, I very much was like, I'm on Roya's side. Like, I'm Roya's friend here. I'm on her side, and that's that. And you can tell she's very apprehensive about this visit because she's just like, at my big age, I'm married, I've had children, I should be over this by now, right? Like, what's the point of really going to see this man, and even looking for closure? Like, how can I do this to my husband, who's very, very supportive of her? But she obviously has all of these, you know, just apprehensions, which normal. I feel like if something were to happen to you that was so life-changing, if you don't ever get any closure, you are gonna have these feelings forever. So her feelings were normal, but I was on her side, like, yeah, you shouldn't, don't go see him, he don't deserve your presence, girl. And then it switches to 1953, where she is back home in Tehran, and she's 17 years old, and she's a student. She lives with her mom and her sister, and she loves to read. Her father is very much a modern man for their culture because he believes his daughters should get an education and they should do things like they don't have to be just these women that are aspiring to marriage. He wants them to be more than that, and he's telling them things like, oh, you're going to be the next Helen Keller, meaning not that she's going to be deaf, blind, and mute, but she's going to write all of these novels and do these amazing things that Helen Keller was able to overcome, kind of attributing the plights that they have as women, more or less not to Helen Keller's disabilities. So she's a good girl. She wants to do what her parents want her to do. She's not necessarily she hasn't really thought about what she wants to do for herself. And I feel like I related to that in Roya's character a lot, because I've always wanted to make my parents proud, whatever that meant. But I'm lucky that I've had parents that have pushed me to go into a direction to find my voice and so on and so forth. But I really related to that, where it was just like this good girl who just wants to drown in literature, who wants to read and write all of the time because that's what makes her happy, but also is like a good student because, I mean, what else do I have to do but hang out with my parents and my sister and be a good kid, whatever. So there's a stationery shop, which is called The Stationery Shop, that she goes to all of the time. And she's there one day and she's reading Rumi, and one of the poems that is repeated in this book a lot, I actually like it. It says, "Look at love, how it tangles with the one fallen in love. Look at spirit, how it fuses with earth, giving it new life." And then the other one, because it was said at the end. Hold on one second, because I was like, maybe I need to get into poetry, because y'all know I be in here like, I don't like it, I hate it, I hate it, I hate it, I don't like it. Where is it? Excuse me. Whatever, I can't find it. Maybe I'll find it later. So she's in the stationery shop one day, and Bauman walks in, and she is just like, oh, he's cute. But because of like cultural like she doesn't want him to know. Like before noticing him, she wasn't really into boys. She didn't really care. She didn't really care about guys, really. She was more into books and stuff like that. Like there were bits where she talked about how like her sister was more into boys and boys noticing her and stuff like that, and she just kind of was just like, whatever, I want to go to the stationery shop and buy notebooks and paper and pens and ink and all of this kind of stuff and like read books and all of this. But when Bauman comes in, she notices him and he notices her, but they both try to act like they don't notice each other, like, I don't see you seeing me. So she notices that Mr., I believe how you pronounce his name is Mr. Fari. There's a K in there, but I don't, Mr. We're going to call him Mr. F. Mr. F, who runs the bookstore, the stationery shop, hands Bauman a stack of papers, and Bauman rushes out really quickly. So an important part of this book is the political climate. So there are some people that are for the Shah. There are some people that are for the prime minister, and there's a lot of tension in the country at the time. So there are some students that are for Russia. There are some students that are for the Shah. There are some students that are for the prime minister, and everybody has different opinions, and it's really, really tense, even amongst the students, because the students, Roya and Bauman's age, feel like they need to be doing something because it's their future, it's their lives that they are talking about here, right? Like it can't be left to their parents. They have to do something about it, which I admire. Roya isn't really into the political thing. She wants what's best. She kind of believes what her father does, which her father is for the prime minister and not the Shah. And I believe the prime minister's name is Musadag, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And that is who Bauman is for as well. So Bauman is very, very, very involved politically. Okay, fast forward. It's been some time. They are now dating, right? And it's kind of under wraps. They haven't really said anything because there is a class difference between them. So I guess technically Roya's family is on the poorer side because of what her father does. He works in an office and is kind of just like pushing papers, whereas Bauman's father is an engineer. So they eventually end up getting engaged, but a lot of where their issues lie is with Bauman's mother, who, from the sounds of it in the book, is suffering from severe anxiety and depression. Maybe a little PTSD in there. I'm no doctor, but just from what I know of her, from what comes out in the story, there's a lot going on there. Definitely depression though, which shows itself in bits of rage. And she hates Roya. She has it in her mind that Bahman is going to marry someone else, and Bahman doesn't want to marry someone else because him and Roya are in love. They both love literature. They both are like enthralled with each other, and it is this really, really cute schoolgirl, schoolboy love story. And they're writing love letters to each other, and it's so super cute. I did feel like there were bits and pieces there where I felt like Roy is dumb, but I had to keep reminding myself that she is 17. Okay, I remember being 17 and having a crush on, oh, I just knew that I was going to marry him. Oh my god, I just knew. Oh, I just knew. And would like take the long way to my Italian class so that I could see him that period every day, because I wouldn't dare talk to him. Oh no. Oh, I remember the day he winked at me. Oh, I came home and I was like, mommy. So I had to bring myself down and say, girl, you know what it's like to be dumb and in love at a young age. Give Roya some grace. So the issue is his mother, right? Because she's super mean to Roya, and it's making Roya feel away. And even the dynamic of Bahman's household between his father, his mother, and him, like, whereas in their culture, the women should be doing the cleaning, the cooking, and all of that, Bahman and his dad are doing a lot of the work because his mom is so sick. And, you know, she kind of goes out into these fits of rages, so on and so forth. So this is causing issues for them, but they both are, we're in love, we're gonna get married. And then Bahman disappears. So now I'm pissed, because where could you have possibly gone, sir? And why didn't you tell her? Like, you asked her to marry you, you went to her parents to ask for her hand, even though it was in a way that wasn't necessarily traditional, because his parents didn't come, again, because his mama got issues. How you just gonna up and disappear on her? So Mr. F from the stationery shop is sending letters back and forth between them. He won't tell her where Bahman is. Bahman won't tell her in the letters where he is. But he keeps telling her that he's gonna be home soon, that he loves her, that they're still gonna get married. Roya is a wreck. And her sister is like, that's what you get for messing with a dude that is political. You should have known better. Blah, blah, blah. And her family is trying to console her because her parents really liked him. Her sister wasn't necessarily convinced, but her parents really liked him. And she's just feeling really confused, which at this point, I'm like, I don't like Bahman. I don't like his family. I'm very much against his mother. Like, I know his mama has something to do with this, right? So the story switches to tell a story about Mr. F, right? So let me go backwards a little bit. At the engagement party, there's a scene where Bahman's mom and Mr. F, are talking, and Roya kind of steps into their, not like, kind of interrupts their conversation, but we don't know what they're talking about. But Roya just kind of points out, like, oh, I've never seen Mr. F outside of his like work clothes at the stationery shop, and like didn't realize that he would be here, or that he knew Bahman's mom or his parents or whatever. Like, she just didn't realize, right? So then we move into a story about Mr. F. So he is young at the time, and he's set to marry someone that he doesn't want to marry. He comes from a high up family. He's supposed to be going to school to be this like religious political person, and he's totally not for it, because he wants to open like a bookshop, right? And as we're going through all of this, he sees this girl at the bazaar, aka like the market, and the girl is helping her dad, who is a melon seller, but he's so attracted to her, and he goes almost every day so that he can sit and watch her or whatever. And one day he follows her as she's going to throw out some of like the melon rinds and whatever other garbage from her father's melon stand. And they have this interaction. We find out that it is Bauman's mom, Mrs. Aslin, when she's a young girl. And we find out that they have like this love affair basically. And when Mr. F goes to his father to say, I don't want to marry who you and you and my mother have picked for me. I want to marry this girl. Her dad's a melon seller, like blah blah. His father like laughs in his face. So he has to go to her and tell her like we can't be together after he's promised to marry her and all of this other stuff. But it implies that they've been having the sex, which in their culture is frowned upon before marriage or whatever the case may be. So then it goes back to present day. So now at this point, I'm kind of just like, okay, is his mom upset because of the dynamic of their relationship? Like her and Mr. F didn't work out and she was a girl from a lower class and he was a guy from a higher class, so now she doesn't want her son to follow in the same footsteps. Is she upset because she's heartbroken? Like it really put me in the mind of A Woman Is No Man, in the sense of like, oh, if I had to suffer and I survived it as a woman, that's just what we go through as women. So the women after me, instead of trying to protect them and to save them from certain hurts and trials and tribulations, I'm just going to put my pain on them. Like, that's what I felt like. I felt like Mrs. Oslin, Bauman's mother, hated Roya because Roya was so close to having all of the things that she never had, which is so painful. But it's something that you see a lot, I feel like, with women of color and the women that come after them. They often, I find, the women that are the meanest to me, that have been the meanest to me, are my elders, are women that look like me, that see a light and see like a fire in me that they didn't have or could not have because of whatever the circumstances were. And instead of trying to make my light brighter, they want to blow it out. Right. So it hurt my feelings, but I kind of saw it coming. And I was just like, that's a shame that she can't even consider her son and the joy that her son would have. Right. Because Roya represents all that she did not have or that she could not have, right? Roya got way farther than she would have. So then we go back to 1953, where Roya gets a letter from Bauman that says, you know what, I'm coming home. I'm coming back. Meet me at such and such square and we'll go to the Office of Marriage and Divorce and we will get married, right? He's like, I'm sick of being away from you. I want to do this, blah, blah, blah. So the day comes, Roya goes, she gets dressed really pretty. She's excited. I'm going to get to marry the love of my life. I finally get to see him again. He'll be able to tell me, because in her mind, she's thinking, oh, it has to be some political type of trouble or something like that. It has to be. There's no way that he would just go away from me for no reason other than like he has to be in some sort of danger or something like that. So she goes to the square, and as she goes to the square, a coup happens. So all of these people are going to the prime minister's house to kill him or to do whatever, to overthrow him so that the Shah would be in power. And she gets caught in the mob, but she won't leave because she is like, he said he was going to meet me here. We're going to get married. I'm going to do this. As this happened, Mr. F comes. He finds her and he's trying to tell her something and he gets killed. And I felt so bad because she's so young. She shouldn't have to experience death this up close in person. She shouldn't have to experience the hurt of a lost love like this. It's so, and I think Mr. F represented so many more things in her life other than just the owner of the stationery shop. Like, the stationery shop means so much to her, and it's just like, if he's gone now, that means the stationery shop is gone, which she kind of like looks in the direction of the stationery shop, and that they've burned the stationery shop down. So all of these things she has to experience, and Bauman does not show up. So now I'm really like, I hate him. I hate Bauman. I hate him. I hate him. His mama, his daddy, all of them. The horse he rode in here on, all of it. I do not like him. Okay, I am upset. So she goes home. Parents find out what happened, and she is like severely depressed, right? But then a few days later, she gets another letter from him that says, from Bauman, that says, basically, I don't want to be with you. I'm gonna marry the girl that my mother picked out for me, basically, and like never contact me again. So she's miserable, which leads to her and her sister deciding that they are going to move to America. Their father's boss helps their father pick out or fill out the applications, and they move to California together. And they go together because basically their parents weren't going to let just one go. Like, they needed each other. They're going to a new country where they don't have any family, where they don't know anyone. So they need each other. And it was, you could tell the Roya, I feel like I got to know her personally. You could tell that she was very apprehensive, but also yearning for a change, because if she stayed there, it's like the thought of Bauman would be everywhere, and she wanted nothing more than to get over him somehow, some way. But she had decided that she would never love again, like whatever. They go to California, they go to school, they get an education, they are amazingly smart and successful, and she's in a coffee shop trying to study, and she decides, she meets this guy, right? And they meet because she knocks his coffee over, and he picks the coffee up. And I believe her husband, well, he ends up being her husband, but he picks the coffee up, and he's just this like really nice guy. And I think the important part here is that she doesn't mention that he ever really like sparked anything the way that Bauman did for her, but he was nice. And then one day he asked her to marry him, and she said yes. And then she moved to New England, and she experiences the loss of a child. She experiences his sister being super mean to her. She experiences all of these things as a woman in this foreign country, where she's learning and she wants to work, but she also wants to be married. They ended up having another child, and then we get back to the present day of it being 2013. And all of this time, Bauman is very much a present thought in her mind. Him not showing up that day and receiving the letter very much affected her in a very big way, which I'm not surprised. Like, I'm sure it did. If it didn't, I would be concerned. If it didn't affect her, the whole experience was very traumatic, from him not showing up, from watching Mr. F die right in front of her, from all of this. So then, in between, there are letters from Bauman that he doesn't send, updating on his life, right? So he got married, he has twins, he still loves her, he thinks about her all the time, but he understands, blah, blah, blah. So then we find out where Bauman went. So his mama was crazy. And I don't use that term usually, but she had her own stuff, right? So what we didn't know about Mr. F and Mrs. Aslan is that she was pregnant. So when he tells her that they can't get married because of what his father says, she has to find a way to abort this child very dangerously, because there were no legal abortions, which is why there should be legal abortions, because it is healthcare. It is important. Women would have to do crazy things if abortions were illegal, and it could kill them or damage their bodies very, very poorly. You should not, if you did not go to school for medicine, you shouldn't just be out here trying to do stuff by yourself. This is why this is important. But anyway, so one day, Bauman's mom is Miss Aslan is having a fit, and Bauman has to go out of the house to run after her. And he finds her at the stationery shop, because at first he couldn't find her, and he decides that he's going to go to the stationery shop because that's his safe place. And he finds his mama in the back yelling and talking about some "tell me you love me." So he goes back there, and Mr. F and his mama are like, well, his mama is doing most of the yelling, the hooping, and the hollering. But Mr. F is standing there and is like, don't do this, and she tries to commit suicide. So basically it's then when Bauman learns that Mr. F and his mom had a baby that was aborted. But then after that, when his mom married his father, Mr. Aslan, they also lost a bunch of children, and his mom blames Mr. F basically. But she also is still in love with him. So it has a lot to do with what she's going through basically. Which is why I mentioned like the PTSD part. Like, she's obviously suffering from the loss of children. It's a mixture of grief, depression, anxiety, like I said, a little PTSD. Like, this woman has been through a lot. So Bauman disappeared because they didn't want to have to face the shame of his mother being like, because she tried to slit her throat. And she wasn't successful. Bauman was able to stop her, but they didn't want to have to deal with the embarrassment of what that meant and how that looks amongst their culture and their community, so on and so forth. So when he was gone, they went to like a villa somewhere and was taking care of his mom until she got better, so on and so forth. But the whole time his mom was like, you better not marry Roya, so on and so forth. So as he was writing the letters, we learned later on in the book that his mom was having Mr. F intercept the letters and forge them to say different things. So it's not that Bauman didn't show up. Mr. F wrote the wrong location on Roya's letter purposely, so that she would go to one place and that Bauman would go to another, because he felt like he owed Mrs. Aslan because of their history. So it goes back to that generational trauma thing that I'm always yapping about here and there. You really don't realize how the things that your parents have gone through affect the life that you lead today, and how either your parents are going to take the time to heal and to do things differently so that their traumas don't get passed down to you, or they're not going to heal and you're going to have to face them. So Roya and Bauman had to go through all of these things because his mom wasn't in a place and wasn't in a time where she had the resources where she could heal and have the wherewithal to do things a little differently, so that instead of just saying like, oh no, my son is not going to be in love, he's going to do whatever, because she had kind of shunned love away, right? Instead of doing that, she could have been like, you know what, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that my son can marry who he wants to, especially because this is my only living child. All of the rest of my children have gone on. This is my only living child. He shouldn't have to go through the things that I went through. It should be different. And even for Roya, like this innocent girl, she gets caught in the crossfire because of the trauma that Aslan's mother has. Aslan Bobman. I keep using their last name. That Bobman's mother has been through, and it's not fair, right? So now, I do feel there was a saying in the book that Roya's mom says that says your destiny is written in your forehead in invisible ink. We can't see it, but it's there. I think, excuse me, she ended up where she was supposed to. But you can't help but wonder, like, what if things worked out? You know, like this is very this story to me, I think again why I enjoy it is because it could totally be realistic. Like it really brings up that thing of generational trauma. So now let's get to me and my tears, right? Because I never cry when I read a book. I don't cry. I take in literature way different than I do TV shows or movies or things like that, because it's up to my own devices to imagine certain things, right? And there are some parts of books that I just take literally as words, like, oh, this is just details that I need, where there are other parts that I actually envision. So she goes to see him. And this is when they basically find out that letters were forged, all of this other stuff. And like their initial meeting, she thinks that he's losing his mind, but she finds out about all of the rest of the information in the letter that he writes her. So after he writes said letter, she reads it and she calls to make an appointment to go to the nursing home to see him. And the woman at the nursing home, who there was a chapter in here about her too, which I thought was really interesting. But we'll get to that in a second. She says that he's not doing well and that if she wants to come, she should come really soon. So she goes and they have this moment of closure, right? Like after all of these years, they finally have this moment of closure. And the part that got me, she said the bed smelled like toothpaste. So this is that. Okay. In the bed, beneath the toothpaste sheets, Roya stroked his chest, searched for his arms, the muscles she had known so well. She kissed his eyes, his cheekbones, his lips. She pressed her cheek against his heart and lay there, grateful for the time she'd had with him, however short or long it had been. Grateful she had known him. Grateful that once, why am I about to cry again? Grateful that once, when she was young, she had experienced a love so strong that it did not go away, that decades and distance and miles and children and lies and letters could never make it disappear. She held him in her arms and said to him all she needed to say. For that fraction of time, he was entirely hers. Why are my eyes about to leak again? Y'all, I was in here. I will insert the picture from my vlog. I was beside myself, okay? Like almost picked up the phone and call somebody saying that I ain't had no business calling. Like they finally got. You want to know what it reminded me of? Are you guys Grey's Anatomy fans? If you are not a Grey's Anatomy fan, I'm about to put a spoiler in here, or if you are watching spoiler. That scene made me feel like when Denny Duquette died. Because men don't have nothing else but audacity. That is all that they have. They just have audacity. A bunch of audacity. That is all that they have. Because the nerve of Denny Duquette to propose to Izzy. Look at me crying. To propose to Izzy, and then he had the audacity to die. And this man, she got her closure, and then he had the audacity to what? Die. The audacity to die. Men don't have nothing but audacity. And of course, I'm leaving things out here. Because I still want you guys to read the book. It's a phenomenal book. But yeah, so I cried about that for a little while. And then she goes to his funeral service where his children are there and everybody has such nice things to say about him. And the story ends where she gets her closure and she has her husband and her son and all of this stuff. And I really enjoyed it. I think my main takeaway from the book, again, is the effects of generational trauma. Like, there are so many things that are so far beyond just you. There are things happening to you today that are so far beyond just you. I still want to bop his mama in her head because she didn't have to do all of that, since everything is not about you. Your son can be happy. Things can change. People can change. The world can change in front of you. Like I tell you guys all the time, the next 5 minutes, the next hour, the next month, things can be drastically different. I think it also puts a emphasis on mental health for Black and brown people. How there are so many things that are affected because our lack of mental health hygiene. We don't take care of our mental health. We just go through life just doing whatever. And I understand then the times were different. She didn't have the resources. She didn't have the ability to get the help that she needed. But in today, in the 2022, you can get the help that you need. You can you can be okay. You don't have to pass down your hurt to your children and your grandchildren and so on and so forth. And I also think what I took away from it is even when things don't go the way that you think that they are supposed to go, things still work out because they had beautiful lives outside of each other. This really big thing happened to them, but they still were able to go out and to do amazing things still. They still were able to live lives. So sometimes your forever with someone is 7 to 10 business days. I don't know why that's my favorite time frame. But 7 to 10 business days. It's probably because when working in banking, whenever someone would order a debit card or something like that, it's like, oh, you'll get that in 7 to 10 business days. But sometimes your forever is the month or the week that you spend with someone. The you know, the small moments in time, maybe that's all that you were supposed to spend with them. And finding the positivity, the light in that, and knowing that even though it was only for a couple of months, Roya and Baman imprinted on each other and were a big part of each other's lives and made all of these big things and big feelings, and they had to learn these big lessons. And if they had not learned those lessons, how were they going to move forward in life? So that's important. I think this book, that's what I mean when I say to you guys that fiction offers lessons the same way that nonfiction does. And I think people that don't read fiction enough don't realize how much there still is to offer, how many lessons, how many gems are intertwined in the words and in the art that is fiction. So overall, I gave this book a 5-star review because it was phenomenal. We got closure, we got answers. It didn't leave you guessing. It made me cry. That is the big thing. It made me cry. Nothing makes me cry. I've got a heart. That's a lie. My mother is gonna watch this and say, y'all, she is lying. She cries all the time. I do. But in public, nothing makes me cry. I'm a thug. But I highly suggest you guys read this. I actually plan to go next week to the bookstore and there's another book by her called Together, Tea or Tea Together or something like that I also want to read, that came out before the stationery shop. So I'm curious to see what that one's about and to see how good that is. So yeah, that is my review of the stationery shop. I highly suggest you guys read it. If you have already read it, let me know what you thought of it in the comments. If you are looking to buy a copy of it, you can get it from shelbyandthebookstore.com. It is absolutely amazing. And yeah, if no one has told you today, I love you. I really, really do. I appreciate you as well. And I will see you in my next video. Bye, guys.